Oh my God, Fox is still pushing this plumber crap? What the?
Joe the Plumber is stealing all of Joe Sixpack's headlines. You know who we're talking about here, the guy who put Barack Obama on the spot about his tax plan. Joe Wurzelbacher practically dominated the last presidential debate, and he wasn't even there. By accident or not, though, he has become a symbol of the working class.
I'm a flash in the pan, I'm just a novelty, Joe the Plumber. It's going to be fun for a couple days and then it's going to go away.
So he doesn't really seem to mind, because an Obama spokesperson earlier said that the McCain campaign has kind of turned him into a caricature. Needless to say, Wurzelbacher isn't the only Joe who works under the sink. There are plenty of other regular Joes out there, as Joe Pellerin from our affiliate in Boston found out.
A couple of days ago, Senator Obama was out in Ohio, and he had an encounter with a guy who's a plumber. His name is Joe Wurzelbacher.
It was the first of many times we would hear his name, Joe the Plumber, a guy who stole the show in the final presidential debate between John McCain and Barack Obama. The Joe they referred to is from Ohio.
Started laughing. Can you believe this? The plumber's always the butt in the jokes.
Joe Acoin is also Joe the Plumber, only this one is from Framingham.
Well, they were talking about Joe the Plumber. There are real Joe the Plumbers out there. We all have an opinion, so I figured I'd express mine.
And this is how he did it. Acoin, who owns his own business, says he nearly fell out of his chair when he heard his name over and over again. So when the debate ended, Joe planted this toilet in his front yard. You see what it says, so you know who he's voting for.
People have how I feel about the election, I guess, you know what I mean? Whatever. Anybody else has signs in their yard, it's my own sign, that's all.
Whenever I heard Joe the Plumber, and I must have heard it 100 times.
You can call Joe Walsh of Foxborough Joe the Plumber as well. He's owned his own company for close to 20 years. There's no toilet in his front yard, and he won't say who he's voting for, but like Joe from Ohio and Joe from Framingham, he doesn't want more taxes.
They want to tax us small business owners, and I don't agree with it.
That was Joe Pellerin, a regular Joe at our Boston affiliate, WFXT.
Gee, I'm surprised the Fox idiots didn't ask the plumbers to weigh in on these other important issues.
Well, we have learned the North Korea leader's health is now getting better. That's according to a senior U.S. defense official, which tells us he believes Kim Jong-il is recovering from a stroke and brain surgery he had in August. He also says there's no sign of chaos in the ranks of Pyongyang. Meanwhile, Japanese media reporting today the North has ordered its diplomats abroad to wait for an important message, and that's a quote, which could be about Kim's health. Russia is determined to get its own version of GPS, and now it may be one step closer. Russia took its new satellite navigation system on a test run using Vladimir Putin's pet dog, Coney. Seriously, they put the tracking equipment on the collar of the Prime Minister's black lab to see if it would work. We're told she was a good sport about it, even took the GPS out for a little run. Equipment flaws have delayed the Russian GPS, but it seems it has passed a major hurdle, and by the way, Coney likes it. Thousands of Iraqi people marching in central Baghdad to protest a proposed security agreement with the U.S. Some Iraqi leaders say the deal could allow American troops to stay in that country for at least 3 more years. Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr reportedly called for today's rally. Al-Sadr also using Iraq's parliament to reject the new security pact. David McDougall is in Baghdad. David.
Julie, by most estimates, some tens of thousands of demonstrators took to the streets of Sadr City today, protesting the continued presence of U.S. forces here in Iraq. Demonstrations happen pretty regularly here, but it's the background to this protest that makes it all the more interesting. For months now, U.S. and Iraqi negotiators have been hammering out something called the Status of Forces Agreement. That agreement shapes the context in which American forces will be allowed to operate in Iraq from the end of the year. And just to highlight how this subject fires up Iraqi passions, some protesters today burning effigies of President Bush and Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice during the mass demonstration. The Status of Forces Agreement covers almost every aspect of how American troops will operate in Iraq. Everything from a deadline for withdrawal to who takes the lead on military operations, the status of prisoners in U.S. detention facilities, and even who has the jurisdiction in the event that American troops commit crimes on Iraqi soil. But Iraqi leaders know how unpopular the U.S. occupation is with their constituents. Several important political and religious figures, both Sunni and Shia, have spoken out against the Status of Forces agreement. They don't want a timeline for withdrawal. They want US troops out now. Julie, if and when US and Iraqi negotiators come up with a final draft of this agreement, it still has to be ratified by the Iraqi parliament, and we're expecting a rough ride for that bill going through the political process, because two of the biggest political parties here in Iraq are falling on different sides of the fence whether to agree on the Status of Forces. That's the latest from Baghdad. Julie, back to you.
Don't even bother wondering why no one is asking the plumbers what they think of sending our troops to war with inadequate armor.